Very controversial territory. That which I haven't spoken on a great deal. Perhaps hinted at it, but not directly taken on this topic. We now arrive at a very controversial and disconcerting topic. When does one have the right to kill? To end by deadly force the life of another, should that other refuse to stop initiating violence against their person or their rights? When does one possess the right to kill those who are holding them in a state of duress? To understand this, or even consider the question, we have to understand the natural law distinction between force and violence. They are nothing alike. They are diametrically opposed opposites. Force is, in nature, the capacity to do work or cause physical change. Every single thing that you act upon to create any kind of change within your rights, you are conducting force. You are employing force. Force is synonymous scientifically with energy, strength, or active power being actively applied to something. And when it is within our natural rights, it is force. It is not coercion or violence. Force is action which exists in harmony with morality and natural law because the employment of it does not violate the rights of others. It is action which one always possesses the right to take, including defensive force employed against active violence being conducted upon yourself or your property or your rights. And that also includes the right to take defensive action against being held in a state of duress. It includes duress, meaning the threat of violence when you're not in compliance with another's coercive demands. You have the right to physically defend yourself in that instance. Violence, on the other hand, is the immoral use of physical power to coerce, compel, or restrain without right. There is no natural right to do this behavior. So violence, no one ever has the right to conduct. Violence is the initiation of coercive action which is in opposition to morality and natural law for the very reason that it violates the rights of others. That's where the word violence comes from. It comes from the root violation or violate. That's why it's called violence. Violence is action which one never possesses the right to take. It is always a wrongdoing to conduct violence upon another. That's the difference between force, especially defensive force, and violence. And people have to make that distinction philosophically. They have to understand it and be able to explain it. There is no such thing as the right to murder. Notice the word that I am using. There is no such thing as the right to murder. As a prescription against unjust killing, the fifth commandment of the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament scripture does not actually translate as, quote, do not kill, or thou shalt not kill. That is not what the fifth commandment of the Torah, the Old Testament, says. Although that's the way it's popularly translated in almost every biblical translation. The fifth commandment in Hebrew is transliterated into English. There's the Hebrew characters, but in English it would be transliterated as lo tirzak. And lo tirzak means do not murder. Thou shalt not commit murder, not thou shalt not kill. There is a crucial difference between the two translations. To murder is to act outside of one's natural law rights with violence against the life of another, without right. When someone transgresses against our natural law rights through violence, we always possess the right to defend ourselves with whatever amount of force is required to stop the aggression, up to and including deadly force. The Bible and the Ten Commandments, in historical, traditional, religious context, never says there is no time when you should not kill if you are doing it in a justified, true, right way when your rights and life and property are being violated by those who will not listen to reason and stop performing those behaviors. It says do not murder, which means you shouldn't conduct violence against another person's life by initiating coercive action and possibly deadly force action when you have no such right to do that. Clear and critical, important distinction between those two modalities of behavior. And too few people understand them or are even comfortable with discussing the difference between killing and murder. You know, if it's truly immoral to ever kill, well, did the revolutionaries have the right to kill the British soldiers who were oppressing them? Did the Haitian slaves have a right to kill their slave owners? Of course they had the right. 100% had the natural right to perform those behaviors. You know, the people who were conducting murder upon these people, if they didn't obey their decrees and commands, had no such right. That's when it was immoral. To explore the original question further, let's consider the example of a kidnapping, which is a person being coercively taken against their will for nefarious reasons. When does the individual being kidnapped have the right to use defensive physical force, including deadly force, against the kidnappers? There is a correct answer to that question. And the correct answer, they have the right to use deadly force as soon as the act of duress begins. As soon as their free will has been usurped and they are being coerced and restrained from exercising their freedom and their free will. The answer is immediately upon being put under the condition of duress. They have the right to employ deadly force. Once again, that doesn't mean that they would be necessarily successful, and they may die in the attempt to repel the violence being conducted upon them. But in nature, they possess the right to kill the individual or group, putting them in that condition of duress. I'm making no promise about their safety. I'm trying to explain that the right exists.